I love reading and I love sock knitting. So let's jump into Denise DeSantis' new book, No Fear Sock Knitting. Hello, my name is Emily Crow from The Cozy Crow and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we are starting a vlog where we're going through the Earthtones girls' new book. This is No Fear Sock Knitting. It came out towards the end of last year, if I remember correctly, and I've been dying to explore this book. There's a lot of instruction about how to knit socks from different parts of the actual sock construction to other tips and tricks. There's some patterns in here. And what I'm most excited for is exploring her shadow wrap heel. I have never made this type of heel before. I am pretty sure it's a type of short row heel, but I'm always looking for new ways to knit socks. I've knit over 100 pairs of socks and I'm just ready for learning some new things. So I wanted to jump right into this book. We're gonna read through it. I'm gonna share my thoughts on it and we're gonna make one of the patterns. If you can hear my baby, he's waking up right now making some cute noises. But I've got a couple skeins of yarn that Denise produced, I guess, in conjunction with a yarn dyer. And I have one of these skeins I was thinking about casting on for this specific vlog. And this is her, so this is Love sock set. You can see Earthtones Girl, and this is by Woolens and Nosh. It is in their 90% superwash targhee and 10% nylon base. So I think that this is gonna be a little bit hardier than the sock yarn I'm used to. I'm used to a lot of superwash merino blends, so I'm excited to have a little bit more toothy yarn blend for socks. And I'm really excited to work on this colorway because it is February, it is the month of love, so I thought this would be perfect for knitting right now. And you can actually see that yarn on the book itself, which is so fun. So we've got our book and we've got our yarn. So let's jump right into it. All right, first order of business is to dive into this book and kind of explore what Denise has in store for us. I have my book darts. I will link them down below, but I really love these as like a little teeny tiny bookmark. So it looks like a little arrow almost, and you can slide it on the page. And I really find it helpful for any kind of nonfiction, like a point that I want to remember or come back to, but I also love it for pattern books and keeping track of which patterns caught my eye. I feel like it's a little bit more elevated than throwing in a post-it note and it lasts a lot longer. I only have a few left, so I will probably need to get more. They do tarnish a little bit over time. I don't know how well you can see that compared to the one that hasn't been used, but it's still usable and I really, really like them. Okay, I really love this viewpoint that Denise has in her book. She talked about how she wants to be a friend, that she's sharing her tips and tricks. She's not necessarily the expert. She's sharing what works for her, and she is trying to connect with us, which I really, really like that perspective. And I feel like if you've seen the Earthtones girls videos, then you would feel that too. She's just so warm and friendly and such a calming presence. She really is a beautiful human. You can tell through the video. And I hope I can tell through the book as well. And then one thing that she talks about is knitting toe up or cuff down socks. And I typically knit a cuff down sock, but I do know how to knit toe up, and I do that occasionally. I have quite a few sock designs that are toe up just because that's what worked best for the design I had in mind. And I love how she says that she was a cuff down knitter, but she found that she was getting lazy, that she was getting formulaic, that she forgot to experiment with her socks because she really was just in the mindless groove of cuff down socks. And so she is branching out more to do toe up. And I feel that too. I've definitely gotten complacent. I've gotten too comfortable in knitting cuff down socks. And so I haven't been experimenting. I haven't been trying things out. I have my formula. I know it like the back of my hand for cuff down. For toe up, I don't know it quite as well, though I know most of my numbers. and I know techniques, but I definitely need to branch out more. So we'll see if there are, besides that heel that Denise shares, the shadow wrap heel, I hope that there are other techniques in here that I can try and implement in ways that I can experiment with even a basic vanilla pair of socks in ways that I am not familiar with.
I want to make a list. These are things that what I want to do for my birthday.
Okay.
Because I want to do a pull out. How do you spell pull?
P. What letter makes the P sound?
P.
Mm-hmm. What makes the oo sound?
O.
Yep. And for pool, you get 2 O's.
O. O after O?
Yep.
O. And then what's next?
Pool. La.
L.
Yep, an L. I am now on chapter 4 out of like 8 or 9 chapters. There are 10 chapters total. The last chapter is patterns. And then there's like a couple other like little things at the end about general techniques and whatnot. I'm on page 36 out of like 122. So I'm making really good progress. Yeah, about a quarter of the way there. And I'm going to continue reading this. I think this is going to be a really, really great reference for those who have limited knitting experience and are just so daunted by the thought of socks, but would love to knit socks. This would have been perfect for me when I first learned how to knit, because the driving factor in me learning how to knit was my desire to knit socks. That's really what made me finally learn, and I still love knitting socks. I knit a pair of socks as my 3rd knitting project overall. This would have been so great to have this as a reference as I was beginning to learn how to knit and just trying to figure out how I could take my basic knitting skills and turn it into knitting socks, because that's what I really wanted to do. And I love how Denise's teaching style is really respectful of whatever choices you decide to make, because honestly, sock knitting is made up of so many individual choices, and you really got to experiment and figure out what works for you and what you like, whether it's the yarn you use, the shape and material of needle. You know, there's so many things to decide when it comes to knitting socks, and there's no wrong answer. So I really love her tone as I'm reading through this. I'm excited to get into the thick of this book where I can hopefully learn some tips and tricks that are helpful for me. So far, not a lot, because it's just basic overviews on needle types and yarns to use and how a pattern is laid out and things like that. But we are moving into more actual techniques of like starting to knit, different types of toes and heels and cast-ons and bind-offs and all that good stuff. So I'm hoping I can find some good pearls that I can then implement in these socks. So I'm gonna wait to wind this up until I am to the pattern section of this book, and then we will pick out which pattern, or I guess which combination of features I want in this pair of socks based on what I learned from here. Alright, so I have caught up in this book and I am ready to look at the patterns. If you can hear, my son is making lots of cute noises over there. I've had a chance to look through this book and I have finished reading it. It definitely flew by. I feel like Denise has a really clear and concise way of explaining things, and this is on the shorter side, I would say. There are, I think, 8 patterns in here. I've looked through and I've marked off the ones that have caught my eye. And first I'm going to share with you the ones that I'm not going to make because they don't suit the yarn I have at hand, but patterns that I definitely want to make in the future. These are the Seeds of Color socks. I absolutely love this cuff detail. Well, I guess it's the leg detail of doing the seed stitch all the way across. I think that looks really cool. And in kind of a similar vein of combining 2 colors together, these are the helical socks that she's been making a lot of on her channel. And so I definitely want to experiment and try this out. But again, it doesn't fit my yarn today. What I'm going to be making is her classic sock exploration socks. I haven't quite decided if I'm going to change anything else about the method of construction, but these socks are really good for self-striping yarn. They use the shadow wrap heel, which I really want to try out. That's why I'm doing this vlog, because I've never done a shadow wrap heel before, and that is Denise's specialty. So I'm gonna be doing a shadow wrap heel as written in the pattern, and I think I'm gonna do cuff down because I've done a few toe-up socks recently and I just need something a little bit different. I normally do a round toe. I normally do a 2x2 rib, but I guess I could always switch up the rib. Now this pattern book doesn't have all the options available for heels or all the options available for toe shaping. There's a couple of each type of thing. So there's a couple different toes to try, a couple different cuffs, a couple different cast-ons, things like that. So this is a really great book if you are brand new to knitting or brand new to sock knitting and have minimal other knitting experience, and so you need to branch out and learn a few different techniques to try out, to experiment, to see what works for you. For a seasoned sock knitter, there's not a ton of new information in here, though there are a couple tips about winding your yarn twice to relieve some of the tension. So I'm going to try to do that today. There's a couple different tips about removing jogs when you're switching colors and things like that that might be helpful even if you have knit socks before, or if you have knit other things a lot before, you know, if you have a lot of knitting under your belt. I would say this is for an advanced beginner knitter and doesn't offer a lot for the expert knitter. And that's okay. That's not what the purpose is. This is for mostly someone who is brand new to socks, who needs to be brave in knitting their first pair of socks or in experimenting with socks to get a better type of garment. But I'm really excited to try out this shadow wrap heel, and I've loved reading through Earthtones Girl's explanation of knitting in general. Like, she's a really good teacher, and I'm interested to see if she has any other Easter eggs within this pattern that I can pull from. For now, I am going to wind up my yarn and get ready, get my needles together, and maybe I will cast on. I have minimal space on my desk. I don't have good real estate for winding yarn, but I found a system that works. So that's what we're setting up right now. Having this backed into the corner of my room works best for the amount of space I have, but it does not work well for juggling a Swift and a yarn winder. So we're making do. I keep these literally as far apart as possible, and still this almost touches. Not ideal. We'll yarn up our main skein first. Okay, I think that's good. Oh my goodness, another big hiccup. Wound once. So we're about halfway through the second wind. I thought I was just gonna do like a, here's the first wind, here's the second wind. This is taking a while. And it's because of the tension in the original cake. And I'm trying to maintain a looser tension in my second cake. And in doing so, I have to like pull out yarn by hand to make sure it's loose enough to wind it. Because if I don't and it pulls, you can easily tell that the yarn is way more tense than the rest of the yarn on the cake. It's becoming very apparent how tight my skeins are wound when they are just wound once. It's like making it very clear to me. So even though this is time consuming, I am feeling like this is worth it because it just feels more kind to the yarn and the fiber that you're working with to not have it so tense and tight. And the second wound cake, honestly, it's huge, but so much softer and squishier, so much more gentle on the yarn and the fiber. Like, this just makes me feel like I'm honoring my yarn more. I wonder if you can still hear him. I hope you enjoyed that baby ASMR that I included. I wasn't going to wind up the mini again, but maybe I will. You like how this little bit is coming out on the top. Makes it easy to pull. I love a center pull. And because this is so loose, I think I need to put this inside a cake holder. So I'm gonna look and see if I have one that will fit this size and kind of compress the outside enough that it'll be easy to pull from the center and not have it totally yarn barf everywhere. I'm gonna wind this up again since it is so tight. I think that this would do wonders for this little mini as well. Holy crap, I shouldn't be surprised, but look how Look how big this is now because it's wound loosely. So much kinder to our yarn. Oh, buddy. I have my baby. Something that Denise says in her book is that if you wind up the yarn and it's pretty tight and you leave it that way for a while, it can affect the elasticity of the yarn. I don't know if I've seen that myself, but I also have a lot of lingering skeins that are already wound up that have been that way for a while. So I wouldn't be surprised, knowing how much tension that put on the yarn, a difference that it would make in the yarn itself. Yeah, I just feel like this is a lot kinder to the yarn and the fibers in general, and especially when we love our craft and we value hand-dyed skeins especially, we should treat them as such. Time to put this little one for a nap, and then maybe I can cast on my socks. My big helper. What do you think of this yarn? Do you like it? Yeah, do you like it? Yeah. So I've made some good progress and I wanted to do a little check-in. I am now on the foot of my first sock, so I've completed this heel. I don't know why I thought that this would be a different short row heel, but short row heels are all basically the same. So if you know of any that are not fitting in the mold of all the other short row heels, let me know. But I've tried a few different short row heels and they are basically the same. You just have different ways of doing your turns and different ways of like denoting how far you need to stitch in order to do your short rows. So basically a short row, if you're not familiar, is you don't knit all the way across the row, you just knit partially and then you turn early and then knit back the other way. And so on a sock, usually you start off with all your stitches, you knit almost all the way across, and then you turn and then purl almost all the way across and then you turn again. And each subsequent row, you're turning a little bit earlier. So you end up making this triangle shape. And then you might resolve those interesting stitches, whether it's a German short row or wrap and turn or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then you start increasing your short row. So you'll work very short right here at the center of the heel, and then you'll start knitting just beyond where your short row last ended, and then purling just beyond where your short row last ended, and then getting longer and longer subsequently to make the other triangle to complete the heel. So that's basically what a short row heel is. And I've tried a whole bunch of different types and they're all basically the same. So yeah, I don't know why I assumed this one would be different, but I do have a couple examples to show you so we can kind of look side by side visually if any of these heels look different or have like a slightly different feel than other short row heels. So let's take a look. Okay, so here are a couple different short row heels that I have worked. I tried to look at the patterns that I've already done so I could kind of show you visually the difference between a couple of them. Now, there's a few different types of short row heels. One that I'm not showing is a turn and wrap. I don't really like that one. I tried it pretty early on in my knitting and I just don't use it hardly ever. Some short row heels that I have done before. This is a German short row heel. That's one side and the other. You can definitely see one side is a little bit cleaner than the other, and that's just from the way the stitches pull, and that's my own tension. This one looks slightly different because again, tension differences. What's really nice about a short row heel is you can work them the same toe up or cuff down, so that's really nice. You don't have to reorient anything. This is a fish lips kiss heel that I have done. This is a paid for pattern that you pay just for the heel. A little easier to see because again, I have an adult sock in this size. And then the heel I just did, this is the shadow wrap. Definitely a different look along that edge, but they're all basically the same in shaping. So which one is right for you? That's a good question. So I don't feel like any of these short row heels are necessarily better or worse for someone. They all use different stitches, whether it's a wrap and turn, German short row for a German short row heel, the fish lips kiss heel uses twin stitches, I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly. And the shadow wrap heel uses twin and triple stitches. So that was a little bit different. I kind of like the distinct look it has on the junction in the middle. I will have to tell you how these wear once I wear them. I'm not a short row person. I feel like heel flap and gussets fit my feet better because I have a higher instep, but I still have socks with a short row heel and I still wear them occasionally. So we'll let you know what I feel about it. But I kind of felt the process of knitting it with twin and triple stitches was tedious. I felt like the process of knitting with the twin and triple stitches, or is it treble stitches? Anyway, however those stitches are called, I felt like that process was just a little bit bulky, if that makes sense. You're just like adding extra loops to stitches you've already worked, and I didn't necessarily like that process. I feel like a German short row heel is a little bit thinner to do the transitions between each row. This one, you're adding extra loops to stitches you've already made. And so yeah, it just adds more bulk there. I don't know if that's gonna affect how they feel on my foot at all, but it affected the knitting process. I just didn't enjoy that process of doing those twin and triple stitches as much as I like doing German short row heels. I think that what really did me in was like the triple stitches. I really didn't like that. It's always fun to do a short row heel just because of how it is worked. It's a fun process. And it's pretty quick too compared to a heel flap and gusset. Now I'm just working on the foot. I have a ways to go, but my goal is to finish this pretty quickly so I can start the second sock and also give you my final rating on the book, the yarn, the pattern in general, and who I would recommend this book to. Let's finish this sock. I've got one sock done. It is not blocked, but I'd like to block them when I have my pair, so not quite there yet, but I wanted to finish this video and get this out to you and then focus on knitting the rest of this pair. It shouldn't take too long because it is a vanilla sock, but I just wanted to talk about the yarn, the pattern, the book in general, and kind of who I would recommend this book to and what my thoughts are on it. So first, the yarn. This is from Wool & Nosh with their partnership with Earthtones Girl. Ooh, it might have been a couple years ago now, whoops. But the colorway is called So This Is Love. It is a 90% Targhee, 10% nylon base, and I love this yarn. It feels so good to knit. It's just got a little bit of tooth to it. Not that it's rough, but it feels really sturdy, like it's a hard wearing yarn. And I really enjoyed the process of knitting with it. I also, trying it on my foot, I really liked how it felt on my foot. It didn't feel too slippery or slick like sometimes superwash merino yarns do. I think that this is going to be a really good hard wearing sock. I'm really excited to have this pair, and I want to knit more with Targhee and BFL and other more hard-wearing sock blends. I think it might be a really enjoyable experience. I definitely need to branch out from my Superwash Merino blend sock yarns, and this is encouraging me to do so. And then the pattern itself. So this is the Socksploration sock pattern by Earthtones Girl. I don't know if this iteration that's in the book differs from the iteration that she shows on her YouTube channel, because she has a video series instructing you how to knit socks. She also has the actual pattern that you can purchase. So I don't know if there's any differences between those. But for this version that's in the No Fear sock knitting book, it's basically a vanilla sock. And I would say a majority of the patterns, there's 8, I think, the majority of those patterns in the book are basically vanilla socks. They just have different iterations of different ribbings, different cuffs, different heels, different toe shaping, different directions. There might be a little bit of like tiny bit of color work or just a little feature that makes it a little different, a little beyond vanilla sock. But other than that, these are all vanilla socks of some variety. So they're actually really good if you haven't knit socks before and you want to try a few different iterations of a vanilla sock to see what features you prefer in your sock. For me, I know what I like in my sock, and so I was really just trying out the heel, though the majority of the sock is how the pattern is written, because apparently Denise has a similar vanilla sock recipe that I do. So for my sock, I did a 2x2 rib, so 2 knits, 2 purls alternating for a 64 stitch count size. I knit 20 rounds in the cuff. I used her trick. I've never done this on self-striping yarn, actually. I've only done it when I have striped my own yarn, but I knit on every color change and then returned to that knit 2 purl 2 pattern, and it made the stripes really distinct so that you don't have the purl bumps poking through. So that was really nice. I had never done that for self-striping yarn. So 20 rounds in the cuff. I did, I would say probably 35-ish rounds on the leg. I didn't count. I just went with however many stripes I wanted to do. I wanted enough of a gap between the cream heel and the cream stripes. So that's kind of how I determined when to start my heel. I also like a little bit of a shorter sock in general. So around 50 to 60 total rounds, cuff and leg together, just so it's more of an ankle boot length sock, you know, poking up just over the top of that rather than super, super tall. I have short legs, so that's what I like. I did the shadow wrap short row heel, which I've already talked about. A little bit of a different feature along this edge as you're doing your short rows, though the process of knitting wasn't my favorite. It just felt a little bulky with the twin and triple stitches. So I think personally for me, for a short row heel, I'm gonna lean towards a German short row heel, but I know that other people prefer other methods, so don't let that dissuade you. I just already have my preference, but it was nice to try out a different process, and I do really like how it looks. It's kind of a fun little feature. And then again, for the foot, I didn't count how many rounds I did because I just wanted to end at the end of a color, and this is what fit my foot. I could count how many rounds. I know how many rounds I need on a heel flap and gusset because I knit that type of sock a lot, but for a short row heel sock, I don't necessarily know. I think it's probably about 60 rounds is my guess. And then I did a round toe. For the first half of the toe, you're decreasing every other round, and then for the second half of the toe, you decrease every round to kind of, instead of having a pointy tip, you kind of round out the tip a little bit more. So that is basically my vanilla sock with just a little bit different heel. Again, these are gonna look way better once they're blocked, but I wanna finish the pair first. So I'll make sure to include some B-roll of me wearing these socks, having the pair in general, so that you can get a sense for how these fit on me. Again, I have a high instep, so these might not be the perfect fit for me, but they will still work for my feet, and I love this yarn, so I definitely see them getting a lot of wear. And finally, the book itself, No Fear Sock Knitting. I've mentioned this before. I think this is the perfect book for an advanced beginner knitter who is catching on to knitting pretty quickly, doesn't need really complicated instructions, you know, can get the bare bones instructions of what to do and you can understand what's going on. So maybe someone who has a lot of crochet experience, who's picking up knitting, or who has quite a bit of knitting experience but has never delved into socks. I think this book would be perfect for you. Denise has a really great way of being concise and clear in her teaching method. And so this book is not super long. I felt like it had a really thorough teaching of every aspect of a sock, and the way that this worked, it would work really great for my brain. So I wish that I had had this book when I was learning how to knit socks, because I learned how to knit just to knit socks, and I was definitely in that beginner stage where I was picking things up really quickly. I was in it to knit socks. I really wanted to dive right in and stretch myself by knitting socks because that's what I wanted to knit, and this would have been perfect for me. I think if you are a more experienced knitter, this doesn't give you a lot. I did pick up on like a couple little tips, but I would say the bulk majority of what's in here are things I've already learned in my sock knitting experience, just from knitting various sock patterns, testing for various designers, experimenting on my own. The only thing that was different was the shadow wrap heel, and that wasn't even too far off the beaten path of what I've already experienced in my knitting. There are a couple cute patterns in here that I may pull from to make a fun sock for me, like the helical socks or the Seeds of Color socks. Both of them are pretty basic. They're not super tricky to do, but they're not a look I've tried before. So I think I will definitely do that. But as far as all the vanilla patterns, I personally didn't have value in them. But like I said, this is a perfect book for the right kind of knitter who is just delving into socks and who is starting to experiment. Even if you've only knit a couple pairs of socks and you want to branch out and try a few different techniques, if you want to experiment a little bit and see what works best for you, if you just need a little bit more guidance on what options are even available to you, this is a great resource. So there you go. my review of No Fear Sock Knitting. I hope this is helpful for you if you've thought about purchasing this book or getting it from your library. I hope that if this book is a good fit for you, that you get a chance to read it and maybe work on a few of the patterns in it. I am happy that I purchased this. I am really happy to support Denise, and I would definitely be recommending this to a beginner or advanced beginner sock knitter. So let me know, have you tried the Shadow Wrap Short Row Heel? Have you purchased this book and worked from it yet? Let me know your thoughts down below because I would love to hear from you. And just a reminder, if you are interested in participating in Earthtones Girls I Love Books and Sock Knitting Knit Along, this is her 3rd year doing it, and she is running it from March 1st through May 1st. So basically the point is knit socks while you read, whether you do an audiobook, an ebook, a physical book, just knitting socks while you consume books. So this video is actually coming out at the perfect time because I am so grateful I got to honor Denise as a Black maker and designer and educator here on YouTube for Black History Month. And you can hopefully use this video as a jumping off point if you're interested in knitting socks and participating in Denise's knit along for the next couple months. I'll put more links down below if you're interested in reading more about that. And if you're interested in checking out Denise's channel here on YouTube, I definitely recommend that you turn to her. She is a very calm and peaceful and loving presence, and she is such a joy to watch here. If there are other pattern books or just other fiber arts related books in general that you would want me to review and share here on my channel, let me know also down below. And if you like this type of content and want to see more from me, definitely make sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification down below to be notified every time I post a new video, because I love all things books, all things yarn, and I especially love when in vlogs like this, I can combine both of those loves for you. And until next time, happy making and happy reading. Bye!